I don't normally do really old games, but I figure it's a good idea to check out what's going on in this match because the Shambler has requested it. It is the Shambler as Terran against Keyan as Protoss on Repulsion. This is still a relatively recent version, maybe the latest version of the map, and it's a 1 versus 1 map by Veek7, and we were actually discussing map distances recently on the server, and how Repulsion is probably the closest, well, I guess we didn't talk about this specifically, but I think Repulsion might be still pretty close, actually, but because we're all used to really, really short distances between mains, it ends up being kind of wild. So, like, just as a note, right, we left, this scribe left, like, the base probably around, like, 35 seconds or so, and I think the average distance was something in the form of 30 plus seconds to actually move across the map to the mains. That is very much, I mean, that kind of feels like a little high to me, but maybe that's actually the case. If that is the case in Brood War maps, like, that might be something to think about, right? So, you know, just more data for us to analyze, and maybe we decided to, you know, not make it quite so big, and maybe we decide to make it exactly that big, or whatever, right? You know, I've been talking this whole time, and I guess maybe Repulsion might actually have a longer distance of it being about 40 seconds or something. I couldn't tell you for sure. I would have to really do some math, and, you know, also the game timer isn't always synced, as you can see. Well, you can't see, but my replay time, my elapsed time says 2 minutes and 30 seconds right now, but it says 1 minute and 36 seconds over there, so that's pretty good. What Keyan found out recently is by blocking the workers in, he's actually helping the Shambler, because there's a bug where if the worker cannot reach the destination, it will just instantaneously return the resource. So we don't know what causes that bug. Obviously, it's pretty intense and has some serious ramifications, but he's actually helping the Shambler by reducing the distance traveled necessary. So, yeah. In this case, you know what? It's sort of karma, because I find that this behavior is really Tismic, and if you do end up, like, I guess maybe it's a flaw with the current balance that you can drop a pylon for such a silly purpose and still be fine, you know, be a-okay. So yeah, actually, he's accelerated the Shambler's economy a little bit, so he will be able to take this expansion with a fully staffed bunker and his Mason returning. When you're going up against Keyan, generally speaking, one of the things I've noticed is that you don't really have to worry. It looks like there was a short pause. There's not really any worry when you are going up against Keyan about something early in the aggression department, unless you're doing something like what I was trying to practice earlier with him, where I was trying to do my... I was trying to experiment with a fast expansion. Somehow it worked better on Wild Whirlwind than it did on this map, but I think it's because Keyan was doing a lattice rush every single game for the express purpose of seeing if he could defeat my fast expo opener. We kind of had like this unspoken, like, let's just test this out, basically, since obviously he knows that it's been something we've been wanting to do. Now, the scout has come through, and for some reason there is a second bunker being made. He did scout, I believe, double gateway. At the very least, he scouted 1 gateway. So I'd be quite surprised to see like an air transition or something. I'm actually not sure what this bunker is meant for. But at this particular case, you know, the Dragonins are coming up. They will be shelled. We've actually been talking in the server as well about maybe taking the bunker and making its range increase +1 instead of +2. And then we figured that would also necessitate some kind of... Oh, interesting that he actually canceled that so quickly. Obviously, you would want to cancel it eventually, right? But yeah, anyway, we figured that would necessitate some buffs to bio in general. And so maybe that would be something that we could take a look at. I thought like maybe a simple thing would be to give Mavericks 2 armor pen instead of 1. Since then they would be a little bit more effective at stuff like Draconins, actually. But you can see they're doing okay for themselves right now. You know, that's mostly because they can't be picked off. And I guess, like, the survivability of stuff is also in need of adjustment. Like, I was thinking the Hurakan will probably move faster. I did give it 3 armor recently, although that update is not actually on anything as of the time of recording this. But that's something that I'm definitely considering, because then you could do... you could whip it out against things like the... Simulacrum, or things like that of that nature, and it would actually be pretty useful. Kind of interesting that he's not really moving any of his workers around, but he's figuring it out now. So he's just transferring some over for the gas. He is capping over here, so the Shambler is coming up to some degree of power. We do have a sequestered icon being built relatively quickly here, and that is not a bad idea at all. The embassy will allow him to protect against any you know, cloaked wraith flyovers or whatever, you can kind of snipe it out pretty quickly using the... well, of course, he's not even going to go for a witness right now. He's saving the gas so that he can afford the a cantor. He's a little bit far away from the resource breakpoints, 200 minerals, 100 gas, and I do think that that means he'll be able to afford it relatively soon. And with bio only, off of one barracks as well, like, the big thing that you worry about here for the Shambler is, like, it looks like he might be making a beeline for Atlas Tech or something. He does have some stuff in these bunkers. Notably, he has 1 Cyprian and 3 Mavericks in each bunker, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure what he plans to do with this. You know, he's capped his gas in the main, he is harvesting from the expansion, and I think Keyan should probably maybe look to conserve spending. Like, I don't really agree with the Zealot purchases here, because I think you want to expand at some point. You've made the initial investment to go into sequestered icon tech at the expense of actually being able to do any like economic moves and take the rest of the map. And so there's always this conceit that, like, you're probably going to take a base here and then maybe take like 2 other bases while the contain is still up, but eventually the contain goes away. And it actually looks like maybe this is going to be, I'm not sure what this is going to be, if this is going to be a bunker or what. What is he building over here? No, just a watchdog. Okay, well, you know what? That's fine because it has pretty decent sight range. He's got a lot of minerals, and you can see he's really struggling to spend it because he only has a single barracks for production. This is where we would want to see fulcrums if you're going to stay at this tech level, or something else, right? So the Acantor is here, and it's just going to start whittling down the bunkers. It really won't take too long for that to cause some issues. Like, you can choose to try to repair it, but obviously the Mason will take damage. Crank. Yeah, the Mason is going to slowly die there. Same for that one. I'm not even sure why he's trying to do it. Like, it seems like a bit counterintuitive to me to try to do that. Obviously, in this case, this is where you would want 2 Acantors, purely so that you can make the move to, like, double push the plasma shells, and it just kills everything inside instantaneously, right? He's already doing some economic damage. 1,000 minerals floated because he's still waiting for the 500 gas for the Atlas. Looks like he just dropped it down now. So, yeah, at this point, I think if Keyan just gets another Acantor, which he is building, if he takes maybe another base behind this, obviously he's floating a decent amount of minerals as well. He could staff his ground army a little bit more so that he could, you know, have a bit more threat coming into this. I'm actually not really sure how could Shambler possibly survive this? Oh, I guess he has a lot of forces in his main. He does have another bunker. He's building a second one. This is still a pretty scary attack. I think if Keyan would reinforce throughout this entire time, especially since he was able to get a Nexus down, you know, you could imagine he could have like 10 more Zealots or 6 more Drakodins or something. I mean, I guess that would be gas cost, right? But yeah, it feels like he definitely could do a little bit more here. The Acantor should be firing shots off at the bunkers down here. It's still, the height range plus vision, or bunker range is obviously very intense, right? So the cliff advantage giving him, in total, that's +4. Obviously, if we were going to do the aforementioned bunker change, that would be +3 instead. So maybe that would make some sense. But yeah, I think, you know, I'm seeing this, right? He's got the Atlas. What is he going to build with it, though? He has no other tech. Maybe he could go straight into captaincies, or maybe he could go straight into, he's going for Sentinels. I guess he does have a lot of minerals, and maybe not a crazy amount of gas. But I was kind of expecting, like, maybe even a starport in this case. He is going to go for fulcrums. It just feels very late, very delayed, right? Like, you imagine a more heavy pressure move like this would, you know, especially if there was, like, a witness to back this up. You know, you can imagine, like, immediately saturating that gas, because that's your pain point as Keyan, and dropping a witness over here to keep tabs on what's going on, forcing a star pad if he wants to detect it, which is obviously, like, kind of out of the way of where he seems to want to go. And then, obviously, like, you've got your double Acantor, you can take pot shots at stuff. Like, Sentinels technically outrange them even if they're not on the cliff, but what you can do is you can walk forward, fire the shots, and walk back, and then wait for flash shielding, right? And so it's a little bit more APM intensive that way, but it is quite possible. Now, there is an Architect coming. The Architect's range is not superb, right? It actually has the same range as the Acantor, but it's a little bit more durable, I guess. Oh, maybe that's not even true, actually. I think maybe it's, you know, its shields are lower. I guess there was another pause. Or something. He's going to go ahead and drop the Acantor. This is obviously, like, a silly move to do. Need warning next time. Yeah. He probably unpaused without asking, which is BM. But don't worry, he lost both Acantors and only killed, like, one Mason, or I guess it was probably 3 Masons or something, so... Some bad manner, bro. Now you can actually move architects with envoys. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't be the case. You can see their transport space cost is 6, and the envoy has a space of whatever. It definitely wasn't 8 SCVs, don't worry. Although I guess you can check in the top right and rewind yourself if you're interested. But yeah, Keyan is not as far ahead as he really should be here. He should definitely have like 5 bases maybe fully saturated on at least 2 additional bases in addition to his main. Obviously, he has the embassy, so he could be pumping scribes nonstop with the minerals he has. And he still hasn't even started harvesting gas from his natural. So if that is going to continue to be his pain point, it makes a lot of sense that he would go for that. Now, obviously, in this case, the architect is not going to be able to breach these defenses. Its role is not really the long-range artillery, right? Its role is like when you already have something in the space of a, like, you know, something to take the damage, basically, and take aggro. When you already have something like that, that's when you use the architect to guarantee the siege break, basically. So that's basically it, anyway. Now, obviously, in this case, the command center will be set up again, and there will be a 3rd base set up for Keyan. He is starting to get his stuff. He's very recently just started to cap his geyser in the main, so you can tell he's really economically behind. I don't know if he's distracted or what's going on. In our games yesterday, he said that he was taking a D&D turn at some point and then just like lost the game because he was AFK, basically, I think. So I don't know what was going on there. Multitasking is already difficult in CMBW, right? Now, this Trojan will be attacked. I don't know if Keyan will have seen that. It does have a single madrigal in the base. I imagine, based on the fact that this is totally undefended, we are going to see some salt over here. I still do think, you know, I've had some more time to think about it, and I think the proposed madrigal rework, where they take a little bit of like a fixed delay, which is actually reduced by attack speed increases and increased by attack debuffs, like ensnare or whatever, that basically feeds into the idea, right? Now, at this point, you really should be able to see what's happening, right? Like, okay, there's some shit happening. I should pull my workers, or I should, you know, move some units down. But it doesn't look like Keyan is going to respond. I don't know if his minimap awareness is particularly good. And so, obviously, in this particular case, I think this might actually be before the madrigal. I'll take another look at it, right? But now there's a double Acantor drop here. So actually, it looks like one of them has already died. This is before the corpse rework, so we can't really tell. In this particular case, it was only good for 1 additional scribe, so it did end up falling. And I actually think that Keyan ended up coming out ahead on this one. I mean, he has a 3rd base. He's continuing to pump workers. He's not ahead economically because he still only has 1 capped geyser. And another madrigal is on the way. He is setting up a 4th base, which is admirable. But again, he's not really managing the bases that he has, right? Nothing's harvesting over here. When you order a worker to harvest stuff, or to build like if you order a scribe to build an aquifer, it doesn't queue the harvest order the same way that the mason is automatically queued onto the reservoir, which is a bit of a weird... I mean, I don't even know how you would decide that, right? Because it's like a bit different. I like this little... I wonder how Vik is going to feel about this spot. This is definitely something where normally you would just be like, how about no? You can't share the space, bro. That's not how it works. So yeah, anyway, you can tell that there's some TISM going to happen here. Just pick it up, bro. There you go. You can tell even the damage actually inflicts onto the envoy that loaded it, which is a good feature, I think. So yeah, anyway, this base has been shut down mining for quite a while. It's just that Keyan's not taking any... Not restocking his main or his natural until just now. Not stocking his 4th. Not using any of the workers built at his 3rd. So he's effectively on 1 base right now. Which means that actually the Shambler was a little bit ahead during that entire engagement, since I believe he was still harvesting gas the whole time. Or at least for most of the time. Now a double madrigal drop happening with 3 Stargates to answer back to it. We'll see what he's going to queue up. It looks like land effects. I suppose he wants to disable the emplacements here, but that's a very APM-intensive strategy. You do have double Warden coming up over here to ward off any drops, quite literally. But, okay, he's finally started to use his stuff down here. But again, no defenses by the resources when your opponent has already said that they are going to drop. Admittedly, like I was mentioning earlier, yeah, the madrigal change where they have a delay between each shot, so that the more targets they have, the more of a delay there is. It does seem like it would be healthier for the game. Oh no! This one's been set to the wrong tactic. And it doesn't even kill the workers. That is, well, it's sad play from both players, I think, is how we can describe that one. But mostly in that particular case, I think Shambler is the sad one, let's be honest. A witness finally making his way over here. Should spot out the situation where we do have... I actually wonder, I think maybe because this patch is so old, this is before the corpse changes and like the reclamation is an idea and stuff, really working out the same way. I actually wonder, maybe this is a version where Atlas is only 400 gas and 400 minerals? That would make a bit of sense because it looked like at 490 something he built it, and I just assumed he got like the magic return at the same time or whatever. I was trying to think about, like, what could that mean? Now, some Mavericks just moving out here for scouting for the most part. There are some Wardens being built over here, so they will be warded off. I mean, I guess they could probably stim and pick off... Well, there's only, like, 8 of them, right? So, yeah, there's only 8 Mavericks. It's probably mostly there to occupy the attention span. Now, we do have some Auroras, as well as some Panoptises coming out afterwards. A Warden coming up over here. He needs probably, like... I want to say he probably needs, like, 2 more on this side. Because that would be in the perfect... Like, this is where you want to drop the Madrigal, right? So if you have 2 Wardens here, and then you have, like, 1, 2, 3, 4 total Wardens in attack range of the optimal drop spot, then you can't really do nearly as much damage. But you can see over here, there's still not really anything going on. And yeah, at this particular point... Yeah, unfortunately, they were already softened up. So he just didn't have enough static defense. I thought I heard an explosion somewhere else, but it doesn't really look like... Oh, it was just the Mavericks dying to the Wardens over here. So despite losing all of the workers, I mean, he is very much down in workers now, but he does have more bases, which means he specifically has access to more gas than what the Shambler has, since the Shambler is still only on 2 bases. Now, during this entire time, we've seen Keyan's only capped 2 geysers out of the 4 that he has to his disposal. He's also not fully saturated. He doesn't want that ridge, apparently. And he only now, yeah, he doesn't seem to want that ridge either. He needs to resaturate his gas over here as well. And he will be using the embassy to rebuild that. So, in general, this is probably like PTSD for Keyan if he ends up seeing this castover. He probably long forgot what was going on in this game. I don't know what specifically he was talking about there. I think if you attack at the exact perfect time, you can get a situation where if you have gotten under attack in one spot, it can definitely cause some issues. Ooh, that was almost an effective... Oh, he didn't want that. Ooh! It's dead. JK! Holy shit. It managed to survive. Yeah, so I think... What he's getting at here is when you get it under attack by this, like by the Mavericks that attacked the Warden and like killed 1 Warden or whatever, if you are also under attack in other spots of the map, it doesn't always inform you of that because you just got an under attack message. You can still see the blinking lights or whatever on the minimap if you pay attention, but I don't think you'll be sent a notification because there's like an internal minimum cooldown, which is just so that if you get attacked in multiple spots at the same time, you don't hear the transmissions play it over themselves or whatever. And we do have Panoptises and Auroras and land effects. 2 out of 3 of these have been remodeled by John A. So there you go. Obviously, I think there's still a ways to go before we exactly achieve the same sort of art style or whatever. Now the land effects coming in, they are going to disable their own units for a little bit, so that's a bit awkward. Now they will, okay, the Sentinel going down is pretty big. Obviously the land effect is still, should be flying over the Mavericks if it's going to keep that mode on, right? It's a bit Tismic, but okay. Alright, so he shuts down the 3rd, and he should be able to even kill it, although his land effect is obviously not assisting. So yeah, I think actually he won't be able to kill it as a result of that. So maybe he never would have been able to kill it, but it feels like he might have had a better shot. Like, it's 500 damage away from death. So it probably wouldn't have been able to kill it, even if he didn't Tism himself with the land effect, and like even if the land effect was attacking with him. So anyway, he would have done a little bit more damage, delayed it a little bit more from going down. There's a lot of Madrigals, though. And when you're up against a lot of Madrigals as Protoss, you mostly want stuff that can outlast them, but also has decent range, because obviously everything else for Terran has decent range, right? So you're thinking, okay, there's a horde of Madrigals. I want something that can either beat their mobility, like air units, or I want something that can outlast them, like maybe Empyreans, like stuff that has a decent amount of HP, but also has an acceptable range with which to combat them. Because they are not really a be-all, end-all for... you know, they're a multi-role unit or whatever, but they're not really a be-all, end-all in that capacity. Now, these units are perfectly placed to start chasing the Trojan, I think, especially the land effect. I'm not sure if he's actually going to notice it. He's going to notice it now, because obviously Like, he should grab these units and start chasing it, right? I'm not sure where the line... Oh, the line effect just went back over. Well, he can kill one of them, and that significantly reduces the effectiveness of the drop, I guess. The other one, you know, who knows where it's going to go. There's 3 Wardens over here, so this mineral line should be protected against a single Madrigal. I'm not sure. I don't think that Madrigal would have been damaged at all. Where's he going to go? Yeah, he's manually targeting it, right? Oh, but they were busy attacking the... They were busy attacking the Trojan. There is a weird bug that I've noticed recently. I don't know how... This is funny. I don't know how, new it is or whatever. It might have been introduced a long time ago. Here comes the land effect to disable his allies. All right, he's actually working on the bunker. It did end up getting popped. The bunker also got popped. But at this point, there's too many madcaps here, I think. And obviously, the Sentinels in general were absolutely ripping shit. We do have more Auroras coming. Interesting. Ah, Monument of Sin. I see. All right. But yeah, so there's a lot of... The bug I'm noticing is that units will actually not retarget something when it threatens them anymore. Like, we used to have this behavior where if you're, like, A-moving and you start attacking this pylon, and then, like, a Zealot walks up and starts attacking you, you would start to attack the Zealot because, oh, it's attacking me, and the pylon's not a threat. Now that doesn't happen anymore. I don't know what could have broken. It's probably something in, like, the attack priority GPTP file or something. But, or maybe it's like, yeah, I think that would be it. Or maybe attack order, something like that. But there's not that battle reaction type deal where the unit automatically reacts to being attacked. For whatever reason, that doesn't seem to be happening. So, and speaking of not happening, Keyan's not really pressing his economic lead, right? He's still not harvesting from this ridge or that ridge. He's still not capping this geyser or that geyser in the 2nd and 4th, right? So he does have a good, you know, phalanx of units over here, or static defense, I should say. He's adding more static defense over here as well. Obviously, you could add some down here or whatever, mostly to safeguard the space. This space is actually more valuable than is natural because of the fact that it has the geysers that's capped, right? The geyser that's capped. A Star Sovereign coming out. Maybe you can pair that with a Didact or something to start breaching these positions. Or maybe you can just take it slow and build a couple Star Sovereigns and start A-moving over here while you defend it with some other air units for interception or whatever. Obviously, a couple Star Sovereigns will make short work of Madrigals, right? They don't have a crazy amount of HP. There are a lot of Sentinels, though, and that's a little bit worrisome because obviously the Madrigal in this mode gives you 12 range. The Sentinels have 10 range, so this is actually fairly defensible against something like a Star Sovereign. Again, maybe if you pair this with a couple Didacts or something, not just for recall, but also for, you know, stasis. We think about just the cloaking, you know, Shroud of Adun, the passive. Definitely could work out pretty well here. Another star pad being, constructing a Trojan there. Obviously flew right into the Atlas, which is still a detector right now. That's kind of unintuitive, to be fair. I think I'll end up removing that sooner rather than later, but it involves adding a structure that's actually dedicated to detection, right? Now the Daedala is on the way, tier 3, and also when you have a detection, by the way, just as a reminder, you can actually see what's in the production queue. So he could see that it was a Trojan there if he clicked on it. I don't know that he did. Didn't pay attention on whether or not the dashed selection circle was a thing for that particular thing. Okay, he's capped the geyser in his natural, but he isn't harvesting from it, and he still hasn't gotten this ridge. He's not taking any additional bases, even though he's not really under pressure for that. I mean, he might feel like he's under pressure. Maybe he would disagree with that statement because of all the drops, but I feel like he's not really under pressure. He's got 2k minerals as well, so he could be, you know, hordes of vassals could be being acquired at this point. Obviously, still could be increasing his gas flow. Some lattices are on the way, so I guess he agrees about the hordes of vassals thing. Now another double Madrigal drop is on the way. There's more static defense over here, so hopefully this results a little bit differently. He can take these units and respond to it if he's got them on keyboard, on control group or whatever. Yeah, it looks like the Madrigals will die. Most importantly, the Aquifer Harvester stayed alive, so he can just resaturate the ridge. He doesn't really care too much about the minerals. And at this point, it's actually like wastes of APM, as well as the resources for the Shambler to even bother doing that, so kind of funny. He is taking a 4th base, or he's planning to. He's got his command center out, and the Daedala is nearly complete, so there is that as well. And actually, it's going to be a horde of Sims. I'm not sure how to feel about Sims in this context. Obviously, the big fear you have when the Daedalus finishes is ion cannons, because it just entrenches the Terrans even more. But, you have a couple Star Sovereigns. You have a third one in the queue, although it's not really building. There's actually been a shockingly low number of Crucibles in this game. I haven't seen any Crucibles. And obviously Sims, I guess, like, they get their shields popped by the ion field effect, but they obviously just die instantaneously, right? So I'm not sure how to feel about that one. Madcap's combing the map. They're going to be very surprised to see that there's none of these extremity bases being taken by Keyan, which means now, as soon as the space gets set up with workers and etc., he's actually in a spot where the Shambler has equalized the income. He's actually ahead anyway because he's capped every geyser, right? Yeah. So he's ahead in gas as soon as the space lands, because this geyser was capped but not harvested from. This geyser was not capped, right? So as soon as the space lands, cap that, saturate. It's just, at this point you have more income than your opponent in a game where you were supposed to be contained and etc., right? So more stuff that Keyan can take home and study as homework, right? Usually what happens in these types of games is that, like, the one player spends a long time trying to build an army, like, in a corner silently without really doing much pressure, or without successfully doing much pressure. Like, the Acantor drops and stuff were pretty good earlier on, but you don't really see too much activity elsewhere. And now, at this point, it's like, okay, I'm going to go walk into some, Sentinels with a stack of air units, and they're going to deal AoE damage, or, the pierce damage. Now, the Star Sovereigns are further back. This is where all the Madrigals are. At this point, you might even... Well, no. The sustained damage from the Madrigals is too much, and he's flying over so many Sentinels. And so, yeah, this is sort of what I was getting at earlier, is, like, basically what happens is you build your entire army, you accomplish pretty much nothing. I mean, actually, it's not nothing. He did do... He put a dent in the forces, right? The ion cannons aren't actually up yet. So, there is that. But, like, what are you going to do now? Like, all your heavy tech stuff died. There's a Star Sovereign down here, but it's all by itself. You've got more units on the way, I guess. Actually, like, Auroras aren't a bad target for, if there was Sentinel count was thinned out, the Auroras could actually do some pretty good damage. And even in general, they absorb damage, and then they, like, fly into enemy units and do damage to them, right? Enemy ground units, including the buildings. So... I like to see the Madrigals being overwhelmed by Sims. That's not really... the Madcaps being overwhelmed by Sims is not normally something you see. They're actually doing surprisingly okay versus the Sentinels. Now, you hit this concave, it's going to be very different, right? They're going to just get popped up. But over those, isolated ones, it wasn't too bad. It worked out pretty well. Obviously, there's a lot more Sims. Like, money-wise, it wasn't a good trade, but minerals, you don't really mind too much, right? Restocking the Madrigal count looks to be the case. Actually, he doesn't really have that many. He's got the Parthenon out. He's looking for either a heavy transport or the advanced worker to start building structures faster and more freely. He's got a single worker harvesting from this reservoir, so he actually has not equalized this, although... Oh, he actually is starting to harvest from this. Nice. Okay, still not capped that. Has restocked the ridge, so there is that. But just having presence at pretty much every base besides this one, the Shambler knows the economic situation, right? He also knows that Keyan is attacking him with cost-inefficient armies. There's more Star Sovereigns being built, but there's not really any support for them. The Argosy is done, so in theory there will be some Didacs out. And yeah, the Aurora's there. I think they might have been shredded before they really triggered their Last Orders passive, but it worked out okay. Like, 25 gas, right, versus the Madrigal's 100 gas is... If you have 4 of them and they all detonate on the same Madrigal after focus firing, I think they would probably kill it. So, maybe not cost efficient in the minerals, right? But Keyan doesn't care about that. He's got 3k minerals in the bank. And also, it goes without saying, he could be trading more cost efficiently if he used other units. Looks like there's another pause. What the fuck? I don't know what was happening there. I always like to microanalyze the pause chats. That might have been 2 pauses in one. He's fully queued 1 billion Taluses. Loves them Taluses. And clearly he wants to start using the Olympians. See what he can do there. I was actually thinking that, like, one of the signs that you're improving at something is that you're embarrassed by whatever you did before. Sort of like how I'm embarrassed by Inconsummate or whatever. Same deal for, like, stuff like the original Madcap walk cycle. I've improved it since. I don't actually know if this version has the improved one. But the Olympian is... I don't know. Maybe I'm not embarrassed about the Olympian. It's more like it's just a wacky concept. I kind of like how out there it is for the Olympian to walk around with his gun not at the ready because he's that confident, but there's probably a better way to imply that or whatever, right? Let's see what the Talus is good for. Probably an Ion. No, just Sentinels. Okay, interesting. More Masons being rallied. Still not capped that Geyser. Not really fully saturated on the minerals either. Could have a lot more minerals, believe it or not. Now the Sim Horde is a thing. Okay, we do have the Anthelion finished. Now, this is something you really... I don't know if you can use it very well against Terran. You can use it in the open field to attack, armies. What are you going to do versus Sentinels? Like, there's so many Sentinels. I don't know if it's going to be realistic. So, we're going to see. We're going to see what Keyan decides to do. Besides build more Sims. I'm really surprised he didn't go for Vassals. Like, I know they would probably die a lot, especially the Madrigals. But you kind of want them to die? Like, you want at least some Vassals, surely. I don't know. It seems a bit weird. There's also a Mason coming in with this attack force. And a Talus, as a matter of fact. Maybe they're going to set up some proxy Ions. Or something equally dumb. No, just some Sentinels, it looks like. Alright, they're making the move. First Madrigal goes down. Some more in the back, reinforcements. Second Madrigal going down, so back down to just 2. They're not really fully in the fight either because they're using their secondary attack, their single target damage attack. Autocrat's obviously rending armor, but you don't really need that armor rend in this particular case. And there's the first Madrigal, the one in front. They're actually focusing down the Autocrats, which is a strange choice. Right? And yeah, it looks like this is the updated walk cycle for the Madcap. The original one was a lot more floaty. Now, the defenses are doing okay damage over here. But unfortunately, the front gate was breached. Now, he does have all these Star Sovereigns, and he has the recalls. The Vassals are coming out finally. Obviously not going to do too much damage then. So what is Keyan going to do? He's going to start moving his Didacs and Star Sovereigns. Obviously, he can choose to stasis, or maybe he's just going to hang back. Now, that structure going down stopped any anticipation of the Didacs cloaking stuff, which is kind of funny. Because obviously you do cloak structures in CMBW with the Didac. It doesn't look like Shambler even paid attention to the attack, though. He was busy doing something else. And I want to know... Oh my god, he's got Ahmed. Well, it's over, boys. I'm kind of surprised I haven't forced Ahmed into the meta, to be honest. Like, I know, obviously, I know my sensibilities. I would prefer the game to actually have, like, sensible stuff. And, like, when it doesn't have sensible stuff, or some stuff is less sensible than it should be, or whatever, I take it as, like, oh, yeah, I should try to fix that, right? But, yeah, in this case... Like, why wouldn't Ahmed be meta, dude? Why wouldn't you build Ahmed every game? I say this while sipping coffee. I'll get that finger pointing thing right one day. All right, so obviously the trick shot is going to commence here. Or maybe it won't be a trick shot. But he's walked right into the Atlas! Oh! First he did it with a Witness. Now he did it with double Didact. So... 675 gas so far. Pretty bad. He's just like, all right, I guess I can order up some more Didacs. Yeah. But I think that was his window. He could have done some serious damage with that. I mean, I would have maybe targeted something like... Well, maybe you scout ahead. He actually doesn't know it, but he threaded the needle because there's been Anseals at every fucking corner here. So he could have maybe done this spot specifically, or maybe he could have, like, come up this way and then gone to the worker line. Not that it would have mattered. Again, minerals aren't... Well, actually, the minerals are kind of low. I mean, when you're sub 1,000 minerals, or sub 1,000 resources of any kind, this long into the game, it's usually because you're, like, actually spending your money and trying to build stuff, right? So, now... well, when you have, like, 10k minerals or whatever Keyan must have had before he started this operation, considering he still has 6k in the bank, that's not surprising. So I think we know where this one's going, guys. Except this time it's not the move that Shambler loses the game to 3 Star Sovereigns because he only built tier 1 units against them or whatever. That's not what's going to happen this time, I have a feeling. So another move out. He'll be surprised maybe to see nothing there. No attempted rebuild of the lattices, just a couple left, building a couple vassals. And yeah, we got some units coming out. Ahmed stays alive thanks to the clerics. I saw Keyan try to snipe Ahmed. Actually, I have no idea what was going on. Obviously, the Olympian will stay alive forever versus a single warden when it has 4 clerics healing it. Clerics in the late game, bro. Who would have thunk? But obviously, we haven't really seen much late game tech out of Keyan. Now he's got his Didax. He's constantly moving back and forth with it. I don't know what's going on. I guess he's waiting for a third. What is he doing? He was like control grouping them over and over again, right? Selecting each one. What is going on, bro? Your base is under attack. You could defend it. You could move your Didax and Anthelion or something. You could just definitely target the Anthelion to move here while your Star Sovereigns were attacking you, right? I guess he was waiting for that Star Sovereign. What a... Yeah, the BM. Dude, people got to stop BMing like that. That's rude. Very rude. Well, the economic advantage is once again is even more handily Shamblers. Although, again, looking at the resources, you might not think that. I like the Anthelion making them slide. Oh no! I have to spin awkwardly. Oof. The stasis is pretty good. He's not moving the Anthelion. He's allowed the Anthelion to be picked off. Sad. He should be focusing down the autocrats here probably, just because of the armor rend, but it doesn't look like it's going to matter. They won't be able to do too much there. And obviously they should kill the Anseal here. There you go. There's still a couple of stragglers left around that could cause some grief, like obviously this Madrigal can outrange Wardens. Double Didac production each time, bro. So he's going up to 5 Didacs, 1 for each Star Sovereign? I wonder if there's a reason for that in particular. 5th base has been set up for Shambler in the meantime, and he's just got loads of stuff. More captaincies. Wants to spend his money. Unlike Keyan. Keyan doesn't believe in that. Guys, this has turned into a turtle fest, right? I think, you know, if I didn't see the time ahead of me, I would probably just speed the game up a little bit here at this point. Again, the replay time tells me 59 minutes. Meanwhile, the in-game time tells me 37 minutes. And it's been 37 minutes. So the in-game time is correct and the replay time is out of sync. We had that issue like way back when we first started doing the replays, and then allegedly we fixed it. Keyan could be building like 30 lattices and spamming vassals and just overwhelming his opponent that way. I don't know what's happening, guys. I'm afraid I'm at a loss. He's decided he's like, okay, you're clearly saying I'm never leaving my base with ground units ever. It's not happening for the rest of this game. But you know, you could spam. Look, you got 10,000 minerals, bro. Claymores and Penumbra. Yeah, these are future stations. I thought they were biotic bases, but I totally glanced over those. I did see the Iron Foundries earlier. Claymores do hover, similar to how Anticathons and Architects work. Penumbra obviously do not, but that's because they're walkers. 4 Didacts going their own way. Wait, is that 5 actually? It looks like 4 to me, but there was I thought there was a 5th one. I can't seem to see it. Now the problem is there's Anseals. Well, there's no Anseals over here to the left, and this Anseal is back here. So at this point, he could definitely be moving this stuff around. But actually, I mean, if anything, he probably needs to come in here with a recall, trick shot, or whatever. I mean, he might just be able to A-move this with the Star Sovereigns. The Penumbra are the biggest targets, right? So he will actually be moving the Didacs back. I think Keyan has given up. I'm gonna make that prediction. I think he's looking for stuff that's not really going to help him now. Shambo's up to 5 bases. We get to see the late game bio, or whatever, late game mech, I guess, and bio, sort of. Now here come the Star Sovereigns. What will they do? Nothing. Oh, they killed the Olympian, I think. There's 3 other Star Sovereigns that didn't join the army for some reason. The Penumbra were busy attacking some workers or something. Okay, he's found a spot. And again, it's like, this is not a very threatening attack. Not only are there all these reinforcements, which were not stasis for some reason. They didn't kill a single mech unit. Oh my god. Man. T busted. Yeah, I forgot Ben was obsing this game. Right? They were talking about that stuff earlier. Not really. Yeah, I have to agree with the Shambler here. The fact that Keyan was so slow to like, he had the right ideas, right? Like we gotta show. I think he's been in positions like this before. I don't know if they've been in castovers where he just hasn't really taken the bases, but he did this time around, right? He took the third and the fourth. You know, he didn't really set them up. He didn't protect them too how against the magical drops, which we've also identified. Like, yeah, it's probably something that we could add some sort of gameplay-based sanity check to. Sort of how I've started to take them or describe them before. It's like, have a sanity check for this, right? Like, you know, it doesn't make sense, right? So yeah, I think like that's sort of some of the things that we've learned in that sense, in that respect. I do think that the game has more strategic depth than this particular matchup showed, probably. Because, you know, Keyan had the ball in his court. He had all of the momentum because he had the contain going. He even denied the natural at some point, which is like a really good move if you want to equalize things. Like that basically, maybe the mistake for a lot of players, and this isn't just for Keyan, but I do think that a lot of players think that when they go for, I'll show the scoreboard, when they go for a move where they're trying to do something like attack the enemy and like finish the game super quickly or something, right? Like they feel like the tempo of the game has to end relatively fast. But actually, if you're in that position, you know, maybe there are some cases where by playing a bit more of a conservative style, you will have games go on longer than they needed to. And I guess if you're not super good at like finishing the job or whatever, you might be in a situation where it feels like, oh, maybe I let my opponent, you know, come back into the game and then I lose a game that I shouldn't have lost. But in this particular case, when Keyan locks out the natural and stops it from harvesting, he's now made... I don't know how long the natural was up before he did that, but I feel like the Shambler, at that point in the game, had lost money on the natural. And like, lost money in terms of all of the units that he had spent to try to defend it, and then all of the units he had to rebuild, and all the structures and you know, stuff that he had to rebuild to pay for it. And then at the same time, like, he should actually be at an economic disadvantage to a significant degree, but Keyan, while taking those third and fourth bases, didn't really fully saturate them, and obviously didn't protect them against the inevitable drops, which he also could have scouted, right? Because he went for the embassy, and I think his first witness was maybe like 30 minutes into the game, or maybe a little bit earlier than that, right? But like, not very close to the point where all of this early action was happening. So I do feel like, even though the game petered out, it's kind of a good example of like, this is what you need. Like, here's the things that you can do, some of the opportunities that you missed when you were containing a Terran and they were just gonna, you know, turtle up and stuff. Like, the Shambler made some very strange purchasing decisions there. He could definitely have improved, or he could definitely have done better in those situations. He could have built more improved things or whatever. And, you know, eventually he started to take control of the map and like sending squads of madcaps to each base and stuff. That's good. And that allowed him to secure a fifth base eventually, but also feel somewhat confident that he had like the advantage and stuff. It didn't help that Keyan obviously didn't cap his gases for a while. And even when he did, sometimes he didn't mind. Like, he wasn't on top of his macro in that sense, or his resources. And then after that, he kind of tunneled in on like very specific structures, right? And obviously was floating a ton of minerals and stuff. So there's all these things that Keyan can do to try to improve. I think the biggest takeaway or lesson for Protosses who are ever in this situation is that if you're in a point where you're answering a contain, like you're forcing the Terran, you even crack their nat, like in such situations, you should definitely be favored to take the game. Just don't try to rush it. Don't try to continue dropping at that point. Or if you do, like, see if you can get an opening for a scout ahead. You know, be informed about it. Like, the second or third attempt that Keyan had for the Acantor drop in the natural, after it had been set up and reestablished, if at the same time Keyan had fully established his fourth bases, his third and fourth base, and his natural for that matter, and like capped all the geysers and stuff, he would have been so far ahead. At that point, you know, with all the worker deaths, he could have taken, you know, more stuff, right? But that assumes he defended against the madrigals better. That assumes that he you know, was able to restock his workers a little bit more dutifully. Like, he had the embassy and he was building it he was, you know, rebuilding scribes and stuff with it. But, you know, obviously, like, this is a compounding effect. And then eventually, like, yeah, you have to try to contain him. Like, he shut down the third once, obviously, with like all the air attacks and stuff. That was a good move. Keyan made a lot of good moves, had a lot of good ideas, had the right ideas in a lot of the cases. He just didn't finish it. You know, he didn't necessarily have a transition out. And maybe that's inexperience in that situation or something, but hopefully this castover gives him some food for thought for improvements. And, you know, I know the Shambler has been practicing his T lately. you know, before he was practicing it against Biddy B, of course, Ben Taberski, who was observing that game. Now he's practicing it against Keyan, who's a little bit more of an experienced Protoss in that sense, to some degree anyway. Maybe they're evenly matched now, actually, now that I think about it, Keyan and Biddy B. But, you know, I would have to see more matches between them to make that determination, I guess. But, you know, like, these are all things that you can point to and say, like, yeah, the Shambler was a player who isn't, like, that's not his main race by any means. So you definitely feel like you should be able to defeat him in that sense. But in this particular matchup, it just kind of got away from him. His APM, unfortunately, was not 333. So, yeah. And the length of this video is also not 333 either. But you can still send us some threes at the link down over there. Bye!